Hi, this is Private Here Station, and today we bring you day 425 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovych, and Russian opposition politician, lawyer Mark Feygin. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Monday, April 24th, time is 1 minute past 10, and it's about the same time in Moscow as in Kiev, and we're doing our usual stream, day 425, with Olexiy Arestovych. Good evening, Olexiy. Good evening, Mark. All right, we have 53,000 starting with us. 14,000 of you already clicked the like button. Please continue share links in your social media, forums, other places where you talk politics. This helps us to bring new eyes to the stream. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to Feygin Live. Those who have not done that, who are watching without subscription, that's a message to you. And of course, to the channel of Olexiy Arestovych and to the Private Here Station, if you have not done that yet, and if you are watching or listening in English. All right, let's start. One of the main news. Here's the intriguing story, somewhat. American publication posted an article that on the 9th of May, Americans asked Ukrainian side to not send any drones to the Red Square in Moscow, which supposedly was a request from Moscow. Supposedly that can bring to the use of tactical nukes on the field. And looks like it's a Moscow narrative. So there are some reactions already. Mikhail Podolyak already, another advisor to the office of the president, already reacted and said that we're not insane. We have our tactics and strategy in using certain tools, and by the way, use it to reiterate that Ukraine does need long-range missiles. And this story unfolds on the background of other calls of reward being offered to anybody who manages to fly a drone to Moscow, and the rumors that Moscow is appealing to Washington to try to ask Ukraine to not interfere with the parade dedicated to the 9th of May. Now, we understood that, of course, for the borderline regions with Ukraine, they're canceling all these celebrations in lieu of military action, not too far, but Red Square, we understand Putin will need to come there, he will need to show there, and he probably is planning to be on the Red Square on the 9th of May. Today, his spokesperson Peskov was coming out saying that he is not a bunker grandpa, that he actually travels, that he sees people. And me and Latinina discussed yesterday a bunch of doubles that he has or doesn't have. So one way or another, it's a question to Ukraine. Please, are you planning to send anything? Because if not, then Putin likely will be there on the Red Square reading something from his piece of paper or prompter or something. And I think he's somewhat scared to even be there unless there are no guarantees. And what's your opinion about these asks? When Russia comes out while killing Ukrainians and asking questions, can you please not attack us here? Maybe do not counterattack at Bakhmut, maybe leave us Crimea. So yeah, questions like that. Please don't send drones to Moscow and perhaps not send drones to Kiev. What is your opinion on that? It's, Mark, it's the first time I'm hearing about the 9th of May. I know there was a request on the 24th of February. They asked us not to hit Russia for the anniversary. No, this message is about the 9th of May. Where do you read that? Here, let me read a response from Mikhail Podolyak, advisor to the office of the president, is making a statement that Ukraine has no plans to attack Moscow on the 24th of February. Okay, so he's talking about February. You're right, not about May. But in the article they were posting in the original US article they were posting about 9th of May. Okay, here's another one. Anthony Blinken of the United States refused to comment. Oh yeah, he's also talking about the beginning of special military operation. So maybe I'm wrong about the 9th of May. So 9th of May, nobody was asking. You think it's possible that things may happen? I don't know, but we have no obligations. Well, you're not going to be flying yourself, right? Like some Iron Man? No, probably not, Mark. What I saw in the social media that from the name of Ukrainian secret services and special services, there is a video online circulating in Telegram, the video of a Ukrainian supposedly drone flying between the towers of Kremlin. And oh, I need to ask my assistant, Konstantin, could you please look up that video and we'll try to bring it up. I'll send the link, Mark. I'll send the link right now. Nobody came out to confirm how real this video is, but it's good trolling, at least. And I'm sending on your WhatsApp. You guys figure it out. All right, let us try to bring it live into the stream. And overall, the story with 9th of May, I suspect Moscow is trying to get some guarantees. Perhaps. Or perhaps they're looking for an excuse. There are no facts that would allow me to build any logical suppositions here. But there is an interesting fact of a drone flying on the Red Square, so I would not be too much in a hurry that Mr. Putin is safe for the 9th of May being there. So you think he can skip this one and not come out? Well, Peskov already announced that he will be present, and yeah, he was thinking to, but now there is a video of a drone flying between the towers. Well, you know, maybe he suddenly will fall ill, or maybe send a double. Well, yeah, he can send a double, and then imagine if that double gets killed. How will Putin react to that? Well, no, he can actually say, come out and say, see, that's what the doubles are for, because our enemies are looking to kill our dear leader. So, yeah. Okay, we'll see the video when it uploads. So another news that Liu Shaye, Chinese ambassador in France, came out on the France media and said that, and I'm quoting, that descendants of Soviet Union do not even have formal place in many cases in the international system because they're lacking, many of them are lacking documents of being heirs to the Soviet Union. And we understand that Russia presented, or Soviet Union presented Crimea to Ukraine during Soviet Union times, even though it belonged to Russia earlier. And that was criticized by Macron, president of France, that these statements should not be used by political professionals. How would you react to that? So, first of all, Mark, Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs already addressed that statement. They dispelled that narrative. It also shows that Liu Shaye didn't study the history of diplomacy well, and namely that one of the founders of the United Nations was Ukrainian Republic, which was internationally recognized as Ukraine is internationally recognized as an heir to Ukrainian Republic of USSR. And yet, Russia was not a founding member of the United Nations, Russian Republic, as a member of Soviet Union, and it just took over that place after the USSR fell apart. And in the United Nations, they understand that, and diplomacy in the diplomatic circles, there are still conversations going about the propriety of such a motion. And by the way, speaking of United Nations, Russia was not a founding member of United Nations, and China, modern-day China, was not a founding member. It was a Chinese Republic, which is these days also known as Taiwan. So, based on the statements of the Chinese ambassador, there may be certain questions in the air to Chinese Republic. And I think Minister of Foreign Affairs there quickly understood the damage that he had done, and they came out with a different statement saying that we do recognize all of the republics, we recognize that this territory belongs to Ukraine, we established our diplomatic relations with Ukraine, one of the first, so we probably just got misunderstood. Alright, we got the video of a drone flying over Kremlin, let's see how it goes, if that's a real one. Well, I see one of the Kremlin towers, Spassk Tower. Here is a mausoleum, here is historic museum. So, you think that's a Ukrainian drone? I don't know, Mark. At the very least, it's good trolling. In social media, some irresponsible people are making statements that this is Ukrainian. There is a trident, our Ukrainians' insignia on that video. But in Moscow, they also confirmed that in central Moscow, in the red area, they got a Ukrainian drone that fell, and we have no idea what was on board. Some people are saying it carried some explosives, others saying not. We have not launched anything officially. Perhaps it's Urals Republic of Russia. Alright, let's take a look at the map. Perhaps not many changes since our last stream, but I think it is still hot near Bakhmut. Mark, mostly around in the Bakhmut itself, not around Bakhmut. Actually, in the Bakhmut, there are some statements of our general command that we are pushing in the north and in the south, and pushing them away from the occupied territories while they're concentrating on the city itself. According to our command, we are holding Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka. Those are the hottest spots on the front. Near Kremenna and Liman, they failed to break our defense line, and they're just standing without taking any active measures, occasionally getting into skirmishes with our troops and small tactical ones. We cannot go into more details, but people who are following the situation close, we can tell our viewers that in Bakhmut the situation is mostly difficult because they're trying to use so-called Syrian tactics when they just level the quarter of the city and then pour in after we withdraw, and after that part of the city was turned into rubble. And in Avdiivka and Marinka, they're also trying the same pincer stuff, and they're failing so far. And again, as I mentioned, in Bakhmut, against these pincer movements, our troops are conducting active operations in the north and in the south. Although there are different opinions circulating in the media, one Spanish newspaper published that Ukraine is actively withdrawing troops from Bakhmut, and there are only 2 brigades left in the city area, and all the heavy equipment and others have left. Our president came out and said that no, we're not giving up Bakhmut. And yeah, indeed, he did mention that it otherwise opens the road to Kramatorsk. And the goal of Moscow is to reach the borders of Donetsk region. So you think that if they take Bakhmut, they can get to the borders of Donetsk region? No, they won't. The goals and be able to are 2 different things. The goals, initially they had to push NATO back to the borders of post-USSR times, and it didn't quite work for them, right? Alright. There was also news about, kind of too early, when some media posted that Ukrainian troops landed on the right bank of Dnieper in Kherson region, and the Ukrainian military already dispelled that, saying no, we have not done that yet. Can you comment on that? Well, Mark, if military officials came out and said that they are not doing it, what can I say here? I can only confirm that, yeah, that officially denying that they landed. So, how real is that? Well, evil tongues from the Russian side are saying that our troops indeed are getting across the river and causing havoc in their midst, but our leadership has not confirmed that yet. So I would also say that crossing the river is a difficult operation. Special forces can do that, but starting a big offensive, maybe, but we'll see. All right, people are joining in spurts. Please do not forget to share links. That's important. Partisans also are pretty active in the area, Mark. I'm getting notes from the locals. Peskov came out today and made a statement that any accusations that the president has doubles are blatant lies. The president is still active. I don't know what he means. Yeah, that's funny. He has never been in any bunkers, and he even sent a kick in our direction without naming, but he also said that regarding blocking YouTube, it's not smart to block the platform entirely, even though there are channels that are pouring their acid lies about everything Russian in their media. But when you're blocking a social media, you're also losing that platform as the message carrier to people. So one needs to be very accurate in doing that. So let's talk about the doubles and the lack of that bunker trace. Is he there? But what can he say, Mark? That he's a scared old Gramps who is sitting in the bunker for 3 years already since the beginning of COVID, while he needs to present him as brave, correct, and active. He cannot say that, so of course he'll make these statements saying that Putin is active, he's traveling, he's visiting Lugansk and other places. But we understand this is not serious. How far did you go with Yulia yesterday about his doubles in your stream? Do you think he has them? Well, we analyzed Kremlin materials, so the ones that they published, and the materials of Bild, which published an interesting article with the opinion of specialists who are researching ears, among other features, and apparently ear is a very unique element of human body, which never duplicate and they're very different with each person. Oh, you didn't know that on legal documents these days people are asked to show at least one ear? Well, I kind of knew that, but I was wondering if they could do some plastics or something to try to match it. But the main thing is that Yulia brings questions why he's not showing next to anybody. He's usually keeping a huge distance, and then in Mariupol he shows up with the locals, shakes hands, stands close to the officers. So it's a very contradictory situation where he is afraid to be next to ambassadors, but then he goes and shakes hands of some supposedly non-quarantined or just random people. I'm not sure how random they are, but still some people out in the world. So we came to a conclusion that it's all very suspicious, even though there is no ground to confirm that indeed he has doubles. At least there are questions. There are concerns that it might not be him indeed, all these supposed travels to Ukraine. Okay, but there are doubles. I'm just telling you. There are. All right, let's continue. We have more agenda to cover. So, the story about Russian leadership children got a continuation, that these golden kids are supposedly, some of them fighting in Ukraine. So Peskov's son, some publications called him Alex, even though he is Nikolai. And There were different messages and videos saying that he's there under a different name, but he's masked and difficult to tell. And of course, there was a video surfaced of his Tesla being driven in Moscow in the times when supposedly he was there in Ukraine, and that's when his Tesla got to pay a fine for violating some rules in Moscow. And he gave an interview to one of the Russian media, KP, that he actually indeed fought there and got the medal for bravery. And they're peddling the message that Feygin and Arestovych are wrong, saying that there are any of the golden kids out in the front. There are none of them. And in reality, there are some. Mark, I think Prigozhin is trolling Peskov. Because if you remember, he started his loud statements about sending the kids of Russian leadership to the front, that they need to be there. And now he is continuing with that message. He is saying that, listen, now they have listened to our statements and the war needs to go differently. But the war didn't change. And even Prigozhin is confirming that Ukraine is accumulating resources to push back and perhaps take territory back. I think Prigozhin indeed is just trolling Peskov because now there are more reasons to look for him as the international criminal. If he is living in Great Britain, if he has property or if he is living in that country, of course, there will be investigation to see what was he doing, if he served in Wagner, a criminal organization. So I think it's artful trolling on behalf of Prigozhin. So here's another video we're going to show, just 30 seconds. Prigozhin again was talking about kids from Rublevka, but sending a different message now. Go move the dead bodies yourselves, and then tell sad stories about war. While your effed up Rublevsky kids will not come here to this shit and mud, you will always be thinking that you're playing soldiers, toy soldiers here. And when you come to the cemetery instead, then zinc coffin will be open for you of your kid with some charred remains, then you perhaps will feel the real weight of what you're doing here. All right, so that's sort of a continuation of if these kids, like son of Peskov, would behave accordingly with military times and will come here and fight, nobody would be asking these questions. Or perhaps they would ask a different question: why the heck what the heck are we even doing here in Ukraine, and why are we fighting? But the other is that you're all doubles. Even your children have doubles. You're sending doubles of your kids to the front. Instead, you all need to eat some shit to feel the real weight of events you have unfolded. Well, what's the logic for Prigozhin, Mark, to confirm that son of Peskov indeed served on the front? Even if, just imagine some fantastic situation that he actually went there. What is the logic for Prigozhin to confirm that? Not really, right? No reasons. Propagandists, maybe, but okay, good. And then imagine you're a speaker of the president of Russian Federation, you're the speaker of Kremlin, and your son is now highlighted as the international criminal according to the law of many countries. What does it give you? Only headaches. There's got to be some rational explanation. Then it has to be a wave. It has to be more children serving there. Except Peskov, they should have found second, third, fourth, fifth. So that would be a message to their internal population saying that, look, you're talking about mobilization, you don't want to fight, but our kids have already served. And they'll need to concoct stories that some of them were wounded. See, the leadership indeed is fighting this war, it's a people's war, and then that would be a different concept. Then it would be a different message to the country. But why Prigozhin would do that, I have no idea. There is no reason, except for one logical explanation that he is trolling. And getting on the radar with his message. and he's tagging people who will be reacting to him. This is the method of connecting to a recognized speaker. When somebody tags you in a social media with maybe 2 followers, and you have a channel of 2 million followers, and the hope of such a person is that you might come there and may perhaps answer that, reply to that tag, and that'll bring a lot more voices and eyes to his channel, or just to perhaps draw attention of everybody. If you're tagging a resonance notable figure, I think it's the same thing. Prigozhin is tagging Peskov for the resonance. And he could have probably tagged Putin, but Putin has daughters, not sons, unless they talk about their husbands going to serve in the military. And I think it's trolling that he is saying that basically Putin is an arsehole that needs national support in Russia, and his leadership are definite ones who don't need any support, and they're just disgustoids in human form. So even if Nikolai indeed fought somewhere, yeah, they're saying he was artillery specialist, so he could be anywhere. Well, if he was fighting, or if it was mentioned that he was fighting, to mention that he was fighting, it needs certain reasons. Because if he was fighting, that could have been kept secret to the end. They could have given him order, medals, whatever, shook his hand and said, thank you for your service, and just keep it secret until the end of the events. But now that they're making it public, they're putting him in the limelight. So this is not a simple action that is done without thinking. There was a reasoning behind putting that limelight on him. All right, 237,000 are with us. 81,000 click the like button. Please continue clicking the subscribe button and the bell. And if you have not done that yet, subscribe to Feygin Live and to Olexiy Arestovych and to the Privateer Station. All right, Lavrov came to the United Nations, finally. He made a statement there. He responded to an appeal of General Secretary of the United Nations to figure things out with grain supplies to Africa. So he's still peddling that and keeping close influence to that deal. Today, Turks came out and said that if the grain deal will not be extended at least in July, there'll be hunger in some countries, and the world will be facing hunger consequences. So I'm commenting on some of his statements that he made from the pulpit at United Nations, that United States have no right to speak from the international community. And he's saying that this is replacing the real picture with the voice of one country. And United Nations, until it's changed, is representing global interests of the United States. He also stated that Russia has been honest about what are they fighting against in Ukraine. I don't know what he's saying that, because they always denied they even invaded. And he did mention that it would make sense to expand the membership in the Security Council of the United Nations, because the West is overrepresented while other parts of the world are underrepresented. So, in your opinion, Russia is the presiding over United Nations this month, and Lavrov and his aides got visas to be there, but journalists from Russia, or so-called journalists, special agents, whatever they are, were denied visas. So, what would you say in this regard? It's typical activity. It's planned. It's nothing special about this mark, really. There was another interesting statement today when Peskov also said that it's a blatant lie that Russia invaded into Ukraine. We had our reasons for a special operation, and he basically sent the ball to Lavrov to talk about the reasons. That's how they do it. If it's something military, it's Minister of Defense. If it's them invading somebody, it's Lavrov to speak about that. And that's pretty typical of them. They were voices in the world about altering the Security Council of the United Nations. They were voices that asked India, Indonesia, Southeast Asia to get those parts of the world represented. And today there was another publication saying that there are four countries that we need to work closer with to hold China and to resist Russia: Brazil, Chile, Nigeria, and Kazakhstan. These are the countries. Brazil is on our radars, right? We talked about them and BRICS. There are opinions about expanding BRICS, and there are voices about expanding G7. Britain, for example, was talking about that. So a lot of serious players and Western experts, they confirm that the existing system of global representation in the organizations like United Nations lacks congruity with the current situation. Because since when the organization was founded, China and India have developed a lot, for example, and global South and global East, they do need to be represented as well. Now there's only China that is a member of Security Council. I personally would include India. I think also Indonesia would have a good chance to be included, and Brazil deserves to be included. So one needs to review that. It makes sense to review that Security Council. The problem is that these conversations are being held for as long as I remember myself, and we still have not gotten to that yet. And the main thing we need to review is the position of Russian Federation in the United Nations. Because as our diplomats state, and I support them in this sincerely, that there were no legal reasons for Russia to take over, to inherit the position of Soviet Union in the United Nations. They're not even the founding member of the United Nations. Belarus and Ukraine, they were named founders, but Russia was not. And now, United Nations is presided by a country that affirms cutting heads on video and the atrocities they've done in Bucha. So what can we talk about? But in general, expanding United Nations Security Council and getting more countries to represent, I do support that. I actually do support that statement of Lavrov, and this organ needs to reflect the existing situation in the world, which it doesn't now, and it creates an aberration. And this is wrong. There are a lot of problems in the world as it is that preclude countries from coming to certain agreements, so that can be fixed. Okay, almost 250,000 are with us. Pretty well-known Tucker Carlson, talking head on Fox News, has left the channel. He is one of the pro-Putin voices in the Western media, who was providing excuses for Russian aggression in Ukraine. He is a Republican of the rather extreme right color, with the whole set pro-Trump and all. And Solovyov, Russian propagandist, Russian news company already came out and said that he came out and offered Tucker Carlson to work with them on Russian TV. So, right, there's not too much in this news, but that's how... Remember, we were talking about PSYOPs, how they are done in the West through media persons. That's exactly how they're done. And I think there is some connection there. Perhaps there might even be some monetary links there. If Russia Today was alive in America, they would be talking about that a lot. Perhaps he could have joined that channel. I think, Mark, we shouldn't be looking for political angles here with Russia. I think Tucker left, as far as I know, Tucker left Fox News as a result of a $700 million deal with the company that is manufacturing voting equipment, and Fox News was claiming that this company altered the elections, not in favor of Trump, and this company sued them back, and they named Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and Murdoch, the owner of the company of Fox News, and his son, and they reached a deal. And as a result of that deal, Tucker Carlson had to leave Fox News, and the court proceedings were stopped. So America has been sick for a while, and Ukraine too. We picked that from Manafort, that political elections are pretty much the show, the fight of two fan clubs. Instead of joining in different views, people take sides and start hating each other. And that, of course, has its implications on the way it flows and the media around it. But the system that exists in the United States, of two-party system, it supposes a certain ideological conflict. The There are some states, there are some voices that people are fighting for, but majority of states, they know their color, and the real election campaign is going among the states that are flip-flop states that are not fully defined as pro-Republican or pro-Democratic. So it's a similar picture. We have a similar break in Ukraine as well, very polarized. Will he come? Will he accept a message of Solovyov? We'll yet to see. It's a funny one, but we need to understand that all the messages that come from the United States, they usually are of the opposing nature. So if Republicans were in power and were supporting Ukraine, they would be shat on by the Democrats, and the same way that Republicans are attacking Democrats for their help. One also needs to mention that 2 weeks ago, Ukraine was removed from the rating of corrupt countries due to the taken effort of anti-corruption and elite corruption effort taken in Ukraine recently. So, we're progressing. One should not take the statements made by Trump and Trump Jr. and others that the United States need not be helping Ukraine. These are statements of political parties, political leaders. This is for the show, and yeah, it's on their conscience. All right, another news, and it is not directly related to war, but there is some symbolism in it. India is expected to become the world leader in overall population by the end of April. The population of India is expected to reach 1,425,000,000 people, and India is set to chase China and overtake it by the end of this month. This was expected for a while, right? And India experienced a huge growth of population, while in China they've been one-child policy implementing for a while. And how do you think it changes the geopolitical picture, especially in this area? Pacific, Southeast Asia, Hindustan. The role of India might get higher influence in that area regionally. Well, the role and political weight does not always convert into leadership, but the fact that India will have to take care of their population, that's for sure. So India, as the founder of the countries that refused to participate, the bloc of countries that refused to participate in the Cold War, India had a politics of non-interfering. They had several conflicts with China, with Pakistan and Sri Lanka, but they tried to be very careful about that. And now they have to be more active. Why Chinese have lost their leadership? the politics of one child per family worked. That and also urbanization of their society. There are different reasons. Now, specialists are saying that China has an inverted pyramid of population, so they're losing the young workers and the numbers of older people are increasing. In India, it's different. So, at least 300 million people in India, for example, in the same time, have no access to electricity. They have a huge part of society that's considered to be destitute. So India will be active, but it's interesting to see how they will position themselves. Yesterday, India joined the sanctions against the northern route, the northern fleet, the Russian northern fleet. Before that, they joined other sanctions. So now we see that these two big actions, and India was trying to get certain advantages, being one of the trade partners of Russian Federation. Iran is more friendly to China, and India have issues buying oil from Iran, so they were buying it from Russia instead. But even with that, they followed the position of the West of trying to stop this conflict of Russian aggression. And India also joined the structure of Five Eyes, which is a sort of a southeastern NATO dedicated to holding China. And they'll have to do quite a serious gymnastics because, on one hand, they need to make sure that they have access to cheap energy. On the other hand, they also have a ton of Russian and ex or previously imported from USSR weaponry, and they need to modernize that as well. And they also will have to be a counterpart to China in that region and to be a prominent leader. And they need to do it. It's a big program. They cannot convert everything and change it. It's also difficult to do it while the country is growing rapidly. There are a lot of other issues to address. And by the way, Indian space program is very original, and Chinese is a copy of a Soviet. So India went initially by a different route of creating their own technological solutions and models. It takes longer, it's less effective, but at the beginning. So China took over at the beginning of this race, and India is now catching up and taking over. So we should expect a serious breakthrough from India, according to specialists, but it will take decades, and probably by 2040s, 2050s, India will be a much stronger country than China, and they will try to realize the demographic advantage in some capacity. But for now, I think it's mostly a problem for India because they need to feed everybody and take care of them. Of course, and that also perhaps shows that India will have to be more active, expand actively on the international politics area. Right, not sure so much as expansionists in terms of territory, but politically they'll have to become more active because they'll have to integrate themselves in different trade and other schemes. And yeah, they need to find things to do for them, right, to provide better sources of income. And India is an interesting component to this warfare because special relations with India that Putin government enjoyed for a while, they, at least at the beginning of this war, provided for additional stability for Russia. But it is changing because India is trying to be balanced, and they are trying to not take a pro-military, pro-Russian position. So you've seen that by their decisions. At the same time, they need to rearm themselves to be a good counterpart to China, and they need to play ball with the West. It's actually advantageous for Ukraine. They're the great ally for us potentially. If the West manages to attract India to their side more, they will find a very strong ally in that region. All right, and the last piece, I don't know if you've seen that or not. Prigozhin made a statement that they will not take prisoners on the pretense of some audio they intercepted. Looks like he's trying to address the story with beheading of the Ukrainian military that they got on the video, and the fact that Arestovych brought interviews with some of their ex-officers, and I think Eldarov was already taken in captivity in Russia, and they started a criminal proceedings against him and his statements that near Bakhmut, Wagner people actually participated in murders of children and teens. So yeah, he's being a media person. He's taken advice of his media advisories, I guess, and he's trying to stuff the agenda with narratives that are to his liking. And since the attention span of the media is short, very few of them will continue discussing, except for you and me, that it did start with beheading of our prisoner of war taken by Wagner on tape. And now they're discussing that they're not going to take prisoners, etc., etc. So it's interesting to sometimes bring weird turns of his media career to light, but I think it's a little too much space for Prigozhin in the stream. All right. 140,000 clicked the like button, 250,000 watched us. Oh, I had also 40,000 live on mine, so high numbers. Of course, we ask of our viewers to keep clicking the likes, keep clicking the bell button to not miss the streams, and to not forget to subscribe to our channels, and of course to Privateer Station if you haven't done that yet and are watching or listening that in English. Sharing links definitely helps. All right, then see you on Wednesday at 10 p.m. and we'll continue with the current events. Goodbye. Good luck.